Hello, my name is Rylie and I'm an education intern at Seal Rescue Ireland, and welcome to my virtual tour. So, first, we're going to jump into what Seal Rescue Ireland is. They are a charity organization that works to rescue sick, injured, and orphan pups from across the coast of Ireland and work between a team of managers and interns to rehabilitate the seals back to full health and then release them back out into the wild. So we don't operate as a zoo or a sanctuary because we have no long term residents. We also do a lot of efforts towards ocean conservation and educating the public on sustainable living. And we do this through community engagement events and offering educational programs at our center in Corktown. So we are the only seal center within the Republic of Ireland. So we cover roughly 3,000 kilometers of coastline. We manage a 24-hour rescue hotline number that concerned members of the public can call if they've spotted a seal that perhaps doesn't look too good. Our interns here at the center take turns managing the rescue phone for 24-hour periods. We respond back to these calls and we pass on any information given to us about a seal that's been spotted to the animal care team, who can assess the pup from the information provided, as well as any photos and videos that are sent of the pup. And then we also have a rescue network of trained volunteers that we can call upon to have the pup monitored for a few hours or for crowd control to be performed. And then many of these volunteers are actually willing to help us transport the pups from anywhere in the country down to our center in Corktown. And just last season, we rescued 173 seals. So, again, a lot of this already covered, but first we receive the call from an intern, and then that information is passed on to the animal care team. And then the intern will coordinate with volunteers to have the seal lifted, which just refers to a technique where the seal is essentially herded into a crate or a cage that has really good ventilation. And then the volunteer will carefully place the crate or the cage into their car, and then, as the seal is in transport, we require hourly updates on the seal, which typically includes a photo or video, just to ensure that the pup is still in really good condition and that proper care is being put towards the seal. So, how you can identify if a seal pup is in danger, we kind of look for a few things. One, of course, is obvious injury. If the seal pup has any sort of lacerations or is bleeding or has any sort of just visible injury, we would like to know that as soon as possible. If they're really, really malnourished and they have skin rolls, that indicates to us that the pup hasn't been able to find adequate nutrition and hasn't been able to meet their dietary needs. And so that is a sign to us that that pup is emaciated. Dry, crusty eyes to us means that they, again, haven't been able to eat properly. Their mom, if it's a pup, hasn't been able to come back and nurse them. And then, of course, if they're lethargic or unresponsive, that's a sign to us that this is a seal that is really in critical condition. Seals, typically, when they're healthy, will be quite responsive to humans if they come too close. They can be quite vocal as well. They will let you know if they want you to back up. And so, if a seal isn't doing that, then we know that it really is time to intervene. There are two seal species in the Republic of Ireland. There's the gray seals and the common seals. The gray seals are the larger species. They can get up to 300 kgs, which is roughly the size of a small grizzly bear. By comparison, the common seals are less than half that, only 130 kg. We like to draw the fun comparison that gray seals are kind of like dogs and common seals are kind of like cats. The gray seals have the longer muzzle with parallel nostrils, so they kind of look more dog like. This also matches their personality as they are the species that is more ferocious, playful, boisterous, whereas the common seals have the shorter muzzle and heart shaped nostrils that look more cat like. And then they also tend to be the more docile, shy, and the less vocal species. Um, Another difference is that the gray seals are pupped in the winter and autumn months, while the common seals are actually born this time of year, so in the summer months. Their parenting styles can also be quite different. The gray seal's parenting style is more hands off. The gray seals only spend a few weeks with their mom while they have this layer of what we call a nugo. It's a fuzzy layer that they have just after being born because they are born in the harsher winter months. And so during this period, they will stay on the beach while their mom goes back out into the ocean, and then she will return routinely to nurse her pups. And then after this period is over and the lanugo has been shed, the mom pretty much leaves, and the gray pup will operate off instincts. So they essentially instinctively know how to find fish, how to swim, how to survive in the wild. This is a stark contrast to the common seals, who really rely on their mom to teach them all of those life skills. Because they are born in the summer, they don't need that layer of lanugo, so they can swim with mom immediately, and they will just learn from watching her behaviors how it's best to act in the wild. So again, kind of covered all of this just a second ago. But the gray seals again have that lanugo. They're gonna stay on land for up to a month while their mom comes back routinely to nurse them. And then the common seals shed that lanugo in the womb, so they are born with a waterproof layer, and so they are good to go to just dive right out into the ocean. And then it's going to be their mom that teaches them all of those critical life skills. So why are we so concerned about saving seals? The first reason is they are the apex predators in Ireland. There are no native sharks or whales in Irish waters, so seals really do sit at the top of this food pyramid. They help fertilize surface water, so they provide food for all those microorganisms that are on the bottom of the food chain. And then, of course, they serve as a great bioindicator for us. So, we track all of the reasons that seals come into our care here at SRI. And so, if we see a large population of seals coming in with the same issue, then we can take that data to independent agencies to help them identify greater environmental issues that we can also strive to address. Unfortunately, it is true that most seals are in need of our care because of human activity, so we need to do everything we can to lessen the struggles that they face in the wild. Now, over the next few slides, I'll be telling you some of the threats that seals face and some actions that we can implement into our own lives to kind of help seals and other marine life so they don't face these struggles in the wild. The first one is plastic ingestion. So, seals are what we call opportunistic eaters, which just means that they're going to eat anything if it looks good enough. So, something like a crisp packet that's very shiny and reflective would maybe look like fish to them. And so, they're going to chomp down on it. Seals have backwards facing teeth and a weak gag reflex, which is really good when they're, eating fish whole. But it's not so good if they've bitten down onto plastic, decided, oh no, this isn't what I wanted, but now that plastic is stuck in their teeth and they have really no choice but to swallow it. But they don't have a gag reflex that would allow them to throw that back up. So it just gets stuck in their belly and it makes them really, really sick. And unfortunately, we have had seals pass away from plastic ingestion. And so, um, another issue that they are facing is the mounting threat of microplastics. So, a lot of products that are being marketed as being biodegradable are actually still degrading into microplastics. So, even though they are breaking down over time, they are still existing in the water as plastic. And so, it's really important that none of this plastic or rubbish ends up in the ocean. And so, how we can help them is just reducing single use plastics. So instead of buying a new plastic water bottle every day, investing in a reusable one, seeking out reusable alternative products to plastics, and then again, just being aware of that the fact that not um, every product is a good one just because it's marketed as being biodegradable. Oftentimes, that is a marketing scheme from companies, and so sometimes we just need to be a little bit more critical about how we're disposing of our products and what products we're investing in. And then, of course, recycling all of your soft plastics is always good for the environment. The next one is plastic entanglement. So, we have a lot of seals that end up in our care due to becoming tangled in what we call ghost nets. Ghost nets are just nets that have been lost or discarded by fishermen or sailors and they end up in open water. The seal on the left of your screen, we named Kelpie. The picture on the top is a picture that we received of her when she first came into, when she was first spotted, excuse me. As you can see, she has the net really tight around her neck. And so, um, seals are quite curious animals. So when they see something like a net in the water, they're going to explore it nose first. Typically, the net is going to get wrapped around their nose. And then when they feel really trapped, they're going to barrel roll until eventually that net is wrapped around their neck and their upper body. Kelpie was just a seal pup, so she was continuing to grow and gain weight, so that net was only getting tighter and tighter around her neck. That bottom picture was once she arrived at Seal Rescue and we cut the net off, and she was obviously doing much better in that picture. The blue that you can see around her neck is a disinfectant spray. Luckily, seals heal from the inside out, whereas we humans heal from the outside in. And so she didn't need stitches or any sort of procedure. All we needed to do was keep that wound cleaned around her neck, and she was able to heal on her own. So, of course, we want to encourage anyone to dispose of their fishing gear properly. And we, of course, don't want to be discarding any nets or fishing line on beaches or in the water. And then it is a really great thing. We do it here quite a lot at SRI. Is to just do a nice beach walk where we pick up any rubbish or ropes or netting. Of course, some ropes can be too large for just us to move on our own. So, of course, here in Ireland, the city councils are responsible for removing any of these larger nets away from the coastline and out of the water. So, you can always contact your local city council to keep your beaches clean, as that is their responsibility. The next one is illness. So, a lot of people don't know that seals and humans can trade a multitude of diseases, including chickenpox, which seals experience as sealpox, the flu, COVID, an assortment of common colds. And so, of course, that alone is a reason to keep quite a distance from seals, as you don't want any germs that they have, and you, of course, don't want to pass any germs that you have onto them. And so typically, seals become quite sensitive to these germs and diseases when they have parasites. So, parasites like lungworm, which diminish their capacity to hold their breath, or tapeworm, which makes them really, really skinny, as the tapeworm is kind of acting as a parasite on the fish that they're able to catch and eat. And so, this leads obviously to a weakened immune system, making them more susceptible to get sick. We do believe that these parasites come from deeply polluted water that seals can sometimes live in. Baked potato was a seal that we rescued who unfortunately did come from an area of very heavily polluted water. So, as you can see in that picture, his skin is quite irritated and he is balding in some spots. And again, all of that is just from being in water that was very heavily polluted. Luckily, once we brought him to SRI, we have different bath solutions that we can put seals in that kind of help a lot of that irritation. And he was eventually released as he started to do far better. How we can help this is to be mindful of the chemicals that we use. A lot of household cleaning products have large concentrations of bleach, which alone isn't too problematic. But if every household is using bottles and bottles of bleach, that really isn't good for the environment, and it still can end up in our water, as water treatment plants are just not able to keep up with that demand. The next one is injuries. So in Ireland, climate change is causing Ireland to experience more frequent and more severe storms. And so we are seeing more and more pups come in with injuries. After the 2017 storm Ophelia, we had 66 seals at the center all at once, so it was quite a lot. One of those seals was Crush, who was in the top left hand corner. Because we had so many seals, we did have to put non toxic paint on their forehead just to be able to tell them apart. Crush came to us with a broken toe, which is not typically a very critical injury. However, because seals have webbed toes, that does complicate their healing process. The vet that we work with decided that it would probably be best to just amputate Crush's toe, which wasn't too big of a deal. He recovered quite nicely in a few weeks, and he was still able to swim, catch fish, and he was eventually tagged and released. We did see him again 5 years later. Those are the following two pictures that you see there. So he was obviously a very healthy weight, and he was actually with other seals on a beach somewhere. So he was doing quite well in the wild. But how we knew it was him was, of course, we spotted that blue tag on his back fin, but we were also able to count his toes actually. So the fifth smallest toe was cut off with such precision that we knew that that had to be crushed once we went through our records. So a very happy story that a seal that we had several years ago is still out in the wild, thriving. How we can help this issue is a lot of the things you've probably already heard about climate change. Reducing your carbon footprint through using eco friendly forms of transportation. So, either walking to work or cycling, reducing your energy consumption, maybe implementing a meatless Monday, or just buying and eating local foods as well. The next one is emaciation. So this is just really a big word for starving. Because 90% of our oceans are overfished, oftentimes seals just don't have enough fish to eat. This is not due to your local fishermen that are just taking their share. This is really due to larger corporations perpetuating a lot of these issues, such as bottom trawling. So essentially, just raking the ocean floor again and again until there's nothing left. And so we see a lot of seals like sneezeweed who come into us deeply emaciated. A healthy seal is always going to emulate that torpedo shape. You should never be able to see their shoulder bone or their hip bone or the skin rolls that I talked about earlier that indicate to us that that seal pup was probably really healthy when it was with its mother. But once they were on their own, they were having to use up that blubber for energy to find fish, but then they weren't actually ever finding the fish. Luckily, though, we kept sneezeweed for several weeks. We put our seals through what we call fish school, which is essentially us teaching them how to properly compete and fight for fish. And then, yes, upon his release is that bottom left hand photo. He was a healthy 55 kg there, so he certainly stole some fish from his poolmates, but because he had such a hard time, we'll let him off with it. And how we can help this is just eating seasonal fish or supporting local small scale fisheries. Again, we just really want to incentivize these massive corporations from taking advantage of our ocean. The final one is orphaning. So, seal psychology is vastly different from other mammals. Um, it's a misconception that seals should spend the majority of their time in the water. In fact, they actually spend up to 75% of their time on land or on a beach. Seal pups, in particular, are not going to swim 24/7 just because they are babies and they will need time to rest. And unfortunately, it is human nature to want to be investigative and crowd around animals that we see. But if you see a seal pup on a beach, it's probably really not by itself. The mom is probably in the water somewhere, routinely bobbing her head up to check on her pup. And if she sees a crowd of humans around her pup or a dog off a leash, she's going to perceive that as danger. And instinctively, it is going to be her desire to want to abandon her pup because, in her mind, it makes more sense to go back out into the ocean and just have another pup the next season versus risking her own safety by going onto that beach and potentially getting herself and her pup hurt. So, this is why it's so important for us to always keep at least 200 meters distance from pups on a beach. So, if you're not so sure what a meter is, you can always put your thumb out, and if you can still see the seal behind your thumb, you're far too close and you need to back up. And then, of course, anytime you're walking your dog on the beach, you want to keep it on a leash or a lead, just because we don't want any other animal scent mixing with the seal pup scent. So, you may be wondering what happens once we get the seals here into our care at SRI. So first, most pups start off in the ICU. So this is the intensive care unit. This is where the really, really sick and fragile pups are going to go. Once they've stabilized a little bit and we're confident that they can be out for viewing, they will move to kennels. This is really a seal's first opportunity to be viewed by the public. When we do our tours here at the center, these are the seals that visitors will be able to see. And then once their care is a little less individualized and they're eating whole fish and we're ready for them to start competing for fish with other seals, they'll be moved to pools. So, yes, this is the intensive care unit. So, they're all in these different little pods. It's a self contained box that we can use to monitor them very closely, as these seals are typically the ones that need very hands on care. Each ICU has a heat lamp, and some seals get a wetsuit mama, which you can see in the bottom right hand corner. It's just a wetsuit with towels and blankets inside of it. When pups are orphaned from their mother really, really young, they miss her, and so this just provides a sense of comfort for them. Also, a lot of these really small seals have to be tube fed, and so you can see that also in the bottom right hand corner. And it's just so we can ensure that they're getting all of the nutrients and medication that they need. And then during this time, we will begin school fish with them, or fish school, excuse me, which is just how it's the slow process of how we get them eating whole fish. As I said, once they've stabilized, they can move into kennels. Each kennel is going to have an orange mat, which is connected to electricity. It's another way for us to kind of help monitor their internal temperature. They're also going to have a black mat, which is for their comfort, as well as interns who maybe have to restrain seals to administer any medication, or if that seal still is being tube fed. And then each kennel also has a bathtub. Of course, we are going to bathe and rinse off our seals multiple times throughout the day just to keep them hygienic. But also, once they're eating whole fish or fish slices, we're going to fill the tub up, put a little salt in it so their eyes get used to salty water. And then we're going to throw the fish into the bathtub because we want to stimulate what it's going to be like in the wild as much as we can. And then finally, once they've progressed a little bit more in their recovery journey, they can be moved to the pools. We have four of them, so nursery, rock, physio, and pre-release. Each of these pools progressively are larger and deeper, and they offer more space for more seals. So of course, that's just more competitors for the seals to have to compete against. Pre-release is the pool that they will go to a week or two before they're set to be released. This completely blocks human contact, so it really by the end of it, they're kind of hissing at us and they really don't enjoy our company. But that's how we know that a seal is going to be successful in the wild. We don't want them to be dependent on our care at that stage. And yeah, so this is a picture of a release. And so again, I mentioned earlier, each seal that we have is tagged with a little blue tag that just has a number that corresponds to their identity in our system. It's not a tracking chip. It's just so if we ever spot that seal again, we know that it was once ours. And yes, so please get involved with our mission. Seal Rescue Ireland is a wonderful organization full of people who deeply care about seals and the marine environment. And so, some ways that you can do that is, of course, if you're visiting Ireland, you can come visit our center in Corktown in County Wexford. We do offer seal feed and enrichment experiences. You can be a rescuer for a day, which is a very fun activity. Of course, you can do something like this and you can do a fundraiser for Seal Rescue Ireland. And then you can also adopt a seal, which is a really fun way to help Seal Rescue Ireland. It's a one time €30 fee, and then you get to follow the entire story of a seal here at Seal Rescue Ireland. So it's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. And then, of course, you can keep up with Seal Rescue Ireland on all of their social medias. Their TikTok is quite fun as they're constantly posting fun and engaging videos of the seals that we have here in our center. Thank you so much for listening and have a great day. So these are the kennels. And so each kennel has the name or the number of the seal. So when the seals are first admitted, they are given a number, and then eventually we will make our way through the list and we'll name them. Each season we have a naming theme, and so this year's, or season's theme, excuse me, is Gems and Stones. So this right here is Moonstone. And then on the glass in front of their kennel has their name, the county they were rescued from, and their gender. This is Moonstone. And so each kennel has a orange heating mat that, as you can see, the seals enjoy quite a lot. And then there's a black rubber mat that's just for their comfort, so they don't have to lay on the concrete. And each kennel has a bathtub. So once the seals have transitioned into eating fish slices or whole fish, we will fill that bathtub up, put a bit of salt in it so their eyes adjust to being in salt water, And then we will just throw the fish in there and they can eat away. And then of course we are going to rinse and bathe them several times a day so they stay nice and clean. He's putting a show on for us. And then next door is Obsidian. So he came into us as P001, so he was the first seal of the season. And next door to him is Galaxot. And then this is Pearl. And then, so at this stage, the seals are relatively stable, but they still have highly individualized care. So they are isolated just as they have, if they're battling any respiratory infections or if they have seal pox or anything like that, we want to keep them nice and separate from the other seals. But as they continue to stabilize, they will move on to the pools, which I'll show you in just a minute. And so we have the row of kennels here, and then we have our first pool. So this is the nursery pool. So as soon as the seals leave the kennel, they'll go to the nursery pool. It's obviously bigger than the bathtub you saw earlier. And it's their first opportunity to really be with other seals and learn how to compete with food. Right now we have the gray seal Opal modeling the pool for us right now. She was rescued mid to late June. She's estimated to be around 9 months old, so it's a little uncommon that we would have a gray seal in our care at this time of the year, but we were a little concerned about her weight, so we decided to lift her and bring her in. But she's done excellent transitioning to eating whole fish, and we are optimistic she can be released within the next few weeks to a month. And so beyond that, we have rock pool, which there's no one in it, so it's not filled up at the minute. And then we have the physio pool right over here. Again, we have no residents there, so it's not filled up, but both of these pools are larger than nursery and are deeper. And so as seals continue to recover, they can transition to those pools. And of course, when we have numerous seals in the pool, it's more room for seals to compete for fish and just learn how to thrive with competition. And then right behind this fence in front of us is the pre-release pool. So you can't spot the pool obviously due to the fence, but that's kind of the idea of the invention. Seals go behind there into that pool a few weeks before they're released. We want to block all human interaction, so they get used to not seeing humans or hearing us, picking up on our language or dialect. Once they emerge from the pre-release pool, they're kind of hissing at us and they are really not enjoying our company. But that means that we are quite confident in their ability to do well out in the wild. And so once you kind of walk past the pools, you can head back towards the kennels. And we'll go a little bit behind the scenes. And so this is where all of the seal care interns do their work. Each kennel has a hose, the name of the seal, the gender. Each seal has their own towel, and these are the foot baths. So every time you step in or out of a kennel, you have to dip your feet in there. The seals also right now are getting seaweed baths, so it's a form of enrichment. We can throw their fish in that once the seaweed's been added to their bath, and so they kind of have to look for the fish. It's a fun game for them. And then just back there is our ICU, so it's our intensive care unit. So the really sick and really fragile seals are all the way back there, but we obviously want to give them quite a lot of space and quiet to just recover and heal up before they transition to the kennels.